Hey, dreamers, and welcome to Dreamers Unite. I am your host, Sherri Pullum, and I'd like to welcome you to this special edition, our series of Activate Your Voice here on Dreamers Unite. It's important for all of us at this time to activate our voice during this critical revolution, during this critical Black Lives Matter movement, especially to give voice, a place that young people can share their concerns, their thoughts, and how can we make change? How can we be a part, not saying them or they, but how can we actually put it on the I? And here at Dreamers Unite, we're not just looking to vent and to just voice, but it's also let's talk about solutions. What can we do? How can we be the change that we want to see in the world? Well, I have a brilliant young lady. She is an artist, she's an activist, she's an artivist. Her name is Taylor Leake. And she too feels it's important to be involved in the movement, in the place that she grew up in, the country certainly that she loves. And she wants to be a part of making change and is a part of making change. Taylor, welcome to Dreamers
Hi.
Unite, the Activate Your Voice series. Let's activate your voice.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining me today. How have you been active in the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah, well, I feel like recently, the stakes have been pretty high, and I have seen a lot of participating across the board, especially for my generation, which has made me really, really proud. But locally here in Newark, New Jersey, there have been a few demonstrations, and also in Jersey City as well, that I have participated in by protesting and just raising awareness, being a part of raising awareness of police brutality and what occurred with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many names, too many names to name. But really being a part of raising awareness and also advocating for a police reform board, as well as defunding the police departments that are surrounding area.
Let's talk about really what that means. And what does that mean really to this generation? What does it mean to you to defund the police?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people are concerned that defunding the police means that, the streets will be rampant with crime and, nobody will be safe, right? Which is a valid concern, when hearing it at first. But really, what the framework is, or the idea is that, the police, instead of having a offensive, I guess, look on crime and reactive energy behind what goes on in protecting a city, we would reallocate funding for the police to other departments to provide aid and help to actually reduce the need for people to resort to crime in order to provide for their families or what have you. Because a lot of times, in impoverished communities especially, people rob, steal, and resort to violence out of a need to provide. And so by reallocating resources and providing funding and programming to people to provide aid, food, education, all these things have been proven statistically to reduce crime, because people will have resources and the tools that they need in order to succeed. And living in a capitalist country and economy, having an education, having food on the table, having resources is what's necessary in order to survive. And a lot of times, with a nation that was built on white supremacy, if we're going to get into the nitty gritty, white
Let's
supremacy.
get into the nitty gritty. We can say it.
Yeah.
White supremacy. We can say it.
Yeah. So,
And
a
white
lot of,
privilege. And white
and
privilege.
And white privilege, yes. A lot of communities have been marginalized and left out of the opportunities that white Americans have been afforded on the backs of Black and brown people. And so over generations, and so we don't know what it looks like to have. We are so used to being in lack that we don't know what it would look like to not have to depend on police to protect us, because we haven't really looked at what the root of the problem is. Because having the police be there as responders, but what happens when there's less things to respond to? That's what we need to get to. And that's what the movement is about. That's what we're trying to shift the focus to. And so yeah, it's really exciting to see people really understanding what this could mean, and hopefully working with lawmakers and lobbyists to see some of these changes happening, hopefully.
Yeah, I think your generation is determined to make these changes happen.
Yeah, yeah.
You all are not just talking the talk out here. You're really walking the walk.
Yeah.
And you're showing us, our generation, and some of our generation too, people have gotten comfortable, oddly enough. Some people have. Not everyone understands um, why the movement, why defunding the police. They don't understand, and especially when they're not in the community,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
They don't get it. Speak about, from a personal standpoint, um, your maybe witnessing, or your experience, or your family, or people that you know in your community. What is the relationship of the police to the community in Newark?
Yeah. So, Newark is the largest city in New Jersey, right? And it has a little bit of a reputation that isn't so positive. And I believe it's because of the crime rate and everything. And the personally haven't had any run-ins with the police, thankfully, but I do know people that I've grown up with that haven't been pleasant. I won't say that the police have had a positive impact on my life either. I haven't seen police officers really cultivate a culture of safety, and in that a culture of fear. On the contrary, I feel like there's a lot of tension between us and the police always, right? And I feel like especially Black and brown people are taught to um, feel this fear from a young age, because of the violence that is used against us. And so, yeah, I've definitely heard stories from my peers about experiencing that fear when encountering the police here. So,
For my children and my family, and even for myself, if I see the police, you immediately get this tense feeling that this stop could go wrong for you.
mhm.
Something could shift and be altered, that could change completely your life if you even survive. So we don't feel like we're being protected.
Right.
And I'm not saying every police officer is bad, certainly, they're not. But um, there's enough of them out there that are not doing the right thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like you know, the reason why well, I know there are some people who believe that all cops are bad, and I think that the police culture is bad.
Yes.
Just the it's reminiscent to me, it's reminiscent of like a frat culture almost, where it's like, see no evil, I speak no evil, hear no evil. So, if one police officer who might be, more concerned about protecting and serving, does his job well and follows the codes and all what have you, but doesn't speak up when their partner or one of their, coworkers in the department doesn't follow those same guidelines, then I feel like they're just as much as at fault. And that's where the problem lies, is that, in police culture, it's very hush hush when it comes to what goes on and when things do go wrong. And I think it's really important not only to train police officers properly, but also to change the culture as well. Because with the proper training, it would be great, of course, but it also values need to be instilled, and it needs a full overhaul, in my opinion. So,
In your opinion, um, three kind of solutions, or not even just three types of approaches, we'll say, in terms of making some changes that could affect positively on the community and of Black and brown bodies, of Black and brown people.
yeah, I think one thing could be that, all police departments need to have a police review board. So, when you're in school or at a job or what have you, there's an HR department, there's a disciplinary board. Why isn't there, a board that holds these people accountable, right? It shouldn't just be up to their captain or the person who hired them to decide whether or not they need to go on probation or get fired. There needs to be multiple voices involved, multiple eyes involved, because the people have decided to take it upon themselves to observe and record, right? And that's great, but I feel like there just needs to be a more serious, I don't even know a word, a more concrete way to monitor police's behavior and the mistakes that they make. The second thing that we could do is definitely improve police training. Lawyers who defend those who are being put on the stand and on trial have to go to school for a very long time, right? And so those who are on the streets protecting and serving before it even gets to that point, I feel like they definitely need a more in-depth training and education in order to do that, in terms of just knowing laws more concisely, and having sensitivity training on how to de-escalate situations instead of reaching for weapons and using the wrong arrest methods. I mean, the knee to the neck is just cruel and excessive, to say the least. So and the officer that did that to George Floyd, he had been on the force for many years, and the other officers that were involved who weren't on the job for so long were following his lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we need people who are training the police officers to have the best interests of Black and brown lives in at heart, and to be educated on how to de-escalate properly and make arrests without harming our citizens. So it's definitely paramount, is training.
Any lawmaker that happens to be tuning in, and
Mhm.
anyone in a position to help to restructure and make change of police reform, those two items are paramount. Yeah.
Definitely. Um, and the last one would just be like a reiteration of what I said earlier, is, not so concrete, but more an abstract idea of changing the culture. And I'm not sure exactly what that would look like. But, definitely just advocating for speaking up and taking accountability for your actions as a police officer who is armed in the streets, with people who oftentimes aren't armed, and um, how to properly account for making severe unexcusable mistakes, or we'll call them mistakes to be polite. Just knowing that your coworker will call you out if you're not behaving within the proper guidelines and code.
Yeah, that's right. Not only call you out, but perhaps prevent you from
Yes.
continuing to break the guidelines and codes and
Hmm.
not aiding and abetting
Yeah,
as those officers did with George Floyd.
definitely, definitely.
It's almost, like you seem like just instinctively, we wouldn't even have to have that guideline actually written down somewhere,
Right, right.
or a code
Hmm.
to know that when you have your knee on someone's neck and they can't breathe, that just to be humane and the person literally is begging for their life,
Right,
because it's really not a mistake and we just gonna call it out. It's not a mistake. It
right.
was intentional.
Yes,
It was intentional.
definitely, definitely.
There was no mistake about that.
Yeah, there's no mistaking that at all. Yeah.
None. Where was the compassion?
Hmm.
You know?
Hmm.
And I think it's difficult to teach someone to just be compassionate.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I mean, the racism, white supremacy is like ingrained in so many facets of the moving parts of our society. So, there's redlining, which sections off neighborhoods and doesn't allow resources to be allocated to those communities, and the housing is blocked off for certain neighborhoods. Black and brown people are less likely to live in more affluent neighborhoods or get approved for certain loans. And, that all circles back into, um, why, um, minority, predominantly minority cities have more crime, and therefore the police are more aggressive with us, because of, it all goes back to the roots that our country was built on. And that's why it's important to advocate for defunding the police, so that we can slowly reclaim what we should already have, which is resources. That's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to. And I don't think there's a snap um, solution to fixing any of this. But I think if we continue to activate our voices
Yes.
and talk about these things and raise awareness and advocate, then we can slowly get there. And we have been for years, making slow strides, and being able to vote being one of them. So definitely participating in the local elections as well as the presidential, would also help these things move forward.
So often, people are just voting in the presidential elections. They kind of
Hmm.
start tuning in and they don't understand how important the city council is.
Right.
And oftentimes, what happens is, especially for local elections, uh, people say, "Well, I'm going to exercise my right to vote," and they might get the robocall, but they're not necessarily paying attention. But
Hmm.
they get the robocall, which usually it's the side that has the most money,
Right.
right,
Right.
to do more marketing and more campaigning.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say whether it's the right or the wrong side. I'm just
Right.
saying it's the side that has more money, and but they don't really actually know what do these people stand for? What do these politicians stand for?
Yeah.
You impress upon young people or anyone that's watching the importance of voting as a young person.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's the presidential election is huge, obviously, because it's televised, and everybody is super involved in every debate, and it's something that is covered from start to finish. So obviously that's why so many people want to be a part of that. But having local participation is so important, because you can actually enact change within your city or state. All the branches just need to align with your views. Not only the president should align with the change you want to see, because you need uniformity in that way to see concrete changes happening. And so, I encourage people from my generation who are very savvy with social media and creating like interactive designs and videos. I've been seeing really cool things happen with each primary in the states. And so people are raising more awareness about local elections, and kind of giving a synopsis about each candidate for these primaries, so that people can make a more informed decision when voting. So I encourage everyone to try to do some research before you vote, and definitely have your voice count and your vote count
That's right.
locally.
Because
Yeah.
too many people shed blood and fought. And
Definitely.
we're standing on there, Congressman John Lewis. Oh my goodness. If there's one thing that we all can do to honor this great man's legacy,
Yes,
is to vote.
definitely.
Um, and as you say, also to be informed about who you are voting for. Be informed, do some research, find out who you're voting for, find out the issues before you go to the polls, or now fill in your mail-in ballot. Do you think that some young people may um, refrain from voting because they don't maybe have the candidate that they want?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, especially in the upcoming presidential election, a lot of people for my generation really wanted to see Bernie Sanders as the Democratic um,
Nominate,
candidate
yeah, the candidate.
nominee. But you know, um, there's nothing we can do about it now. I'm hoping that people will still get out and vote, for who they think is best fit for the job, and not just not participate, because that's what happened last election.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. Yeah.
And we saw it happen with that. So, yeah. So I'm hoping that, people still send in their ballots and do it early, because, the postal service is experiencing a lot of overwhelming problems because of COVID. So send those ballots early, people.
Yes, send in those ballots early and believe in the process of this election and believe in our democracy.
hmm
So, you are also an artivist, an activist, and an artivist. How would you like to use your art to bring about maybe an awareness for voting, for police reform, for just change that you want to see happening in the world?
Yeah, definitely. I often write about my point of view, specifically as a Black woman, and what that looks like being in this country. And I try to perform at a charity when I can. And most recently, I participated in the Walk of Hope, which happens in New York annually. Well, unfortunately, not this year because of COVID, but usually it happens around this time, and it advocates for women who have been affected by domestic violence. And So yeah, I definitely try to use my platform in order to raise awareness about many issues, not only police brutality, but also things that concern women. And that's very close to my heart because I feel like, oftentimes, we're swept under the rug, a lot of the issues that we face. As we've seen with Breonna Taylor, still waiting for justice to be served for her. And so, I definitely write about it in my music. So I try to raise awareness there. I use my social media platforms in order to inform the people who follow me about any protests that are going on in the area or around the country, and petitions to sign, places to donate. And those are like little things that anybody can do that make a huge difference, actually.
Definitely.
Um, and Twitter is beautiful for that. Black Twitter is so strong with their activism and raising awareness and raising money and resources for the organizations who are doing great things in pushing the movement forward.
Yeah, because that's what it takes, money.
It
It takes
does.
resources. So where can people find you?
I am on Instagram and Twitter at LOTYS underscore on Instagram and underscore LOTYS on Twitter. And you guys can follow me there, and yeah, check out my music and also different resources to help better our communities. Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm going to give you the final word. Um, what would you like to tell us, those people who think, I can't really make a difference. I can't make a change. Maybe I don't have any money, or I'm not going to go out marching because it's COVID time, or whatever excuse or whatever reason people are coming up with. What can you say to them?
Yeah, I think activism comes in many forms, and there's no right way to become active in the movement. Not protesting is fine because there is a pandemic, and Black and brown people are disproportionately affected by COVID. So if you don't want to march, that's fine. There's other ways for you to get involved. You can simply start opening dialogues with the people you're close with, your friends, your family, about what they know about the movement, what they know about what's going on in the world today. And just by having those conversations, it might seem just like little steps, but it's actually what really gets things going. Without these conversations, nothing would have started. We wouldn't have such a huge Black Lives Matter movement, and it wouldn't be televised today. Nothing would change without communication within our close circles. And from those conversations, I hope that we'll eventually spring action. And so, as we are in conversation and becoming more educated, it almost becomes a fuel to want to do more. And so you can donate or repost or send different petitions or articles to extend the conversation outward and the engagement outward to others. And that's how it starts. It only takes one or two people to ignite change. Yeah.
That's right. One or two people, it's that ripple effect
Yes. Yes.
that expands outward. Taylor
Yeah.
Leake, thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
part of this conversation. And like you said, this is where it starts.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
figuring out what could we reimagine for our country? What could we reimagine for the world to make it a better place? And
Yes.
I'm sure glad you're in it, Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us here on Dreamers Unite and sharing your thoughts and views and opinions, and your wisdom and offerings today, which I think have been very helpful and very insightful.
Of course. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Dreamers, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, I am going to say, of course, subscribe. Definitely follow us at Dreamers Unite Show. I am grateful every time that you come and spend time with me, with my guests, and most importantly, know that you can activate your voice. You can, as Taylor says, just one small change. It's a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect that can make huge impact. So don't underestimate yourself with activating your voice. I'll see you again next time on Dreamers Unite. Thanks again.